going to start off with just like a dry fly, but just with a different sort of hackling technique. So this is a really old pattern. This is basically a blue upright without a wing. So we're going to start off. I've got a size 14 dry fly hook in there. So we've got some purple thread. So I'm just going to run some purple thread on. Excuse me. And cut off the waist. And then I'm going to get a tail material. I'll just run through this because it's the interesting technique doesn't appear till the end. So we'll just rattle through this. And
what make of hook do you tend to use?
This is a grip.
Yeah.
It's a dry fly hook. I do quite like those, and also the fill-in mill ultimate dry fly are nice as well. So I've got some sort of cocktail on in like a dun colour. So this is just 5 or 6 fibres for a tail basically. The important thing with the neatness is to line the tips up. So line the tips up, and then obviously the less you handle that, the less you're going to disrupt the tips. I sometimes use a little 2-2 bullet case, but you can sort of stack things like cocktail on, but it's you're being super fussy. So there's our tail, so I'm just going to offer it up for length. So I want it about the same length as the shank, so I can roughly guess my length. Worth throwing them tonight. And then just get a couple of turns on there, check it for length, and then I'm going to run the thread up just to tie it all in, keep it neat. Because I'm sure things I've showed, people demonstrate, or you teach all the time, always try and avoid a vertical upright cut when cutting materials. We don't want any steps. So always try and cut the materials with a nice flat tapered cut, and then you can just blow it over, and you won't have lumps and bumps. We don't want lumps and bumps. So I'm going to run the thread back a little bit. Here's a quill I stripped earlier, but I do like stripping my own from the peacock eyes.
How do you strip?
Just with the rubber. Quite a firm rubber, not like the really soft white ones. Quite a firm one.
Ink rubber, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Davey McPhail, he uses something. It looks like a bit of skateboard wheel or something. It's a really hard bit of rubber, but they're great. So it's not with these ones I strip myself. I don't worry. They very rarely split. But a lot of the shop bought ones, especially if they've been chemically stripped or whatever, they can be really brittle. So just before I tie it in, just moisten it a bit.
Yeah.
It just helps stopping it crack or split. So some people soak them. So, and I'm
hair conditioner is quite good.
Yeah.
Soak them in hair conditioner.
Derek Young, he said that they had a guy do a demonstration on the Ludlow thing. He basically dips the whole eye in wax, and then you can just literally let it cool and dry, and you just scrape the wax off, and all the fibres come off as well, apparently. But so let's give it a moisten, tie that in, and when you can see that I've taken all of mine from one side of the eye. It's a bit. I like to have it when the barring, when I wind the quill, the dark segment is to the rear. But so I always go from the left hand side of the eye. But you don't have to. I know Peter Dean who tied the Beacon Beige. He preferred the other side, but it's just So we just tie that on there. So this is just a nice little dun pattern. the river fly. You could just use it on the still waters as well. It's a really good sort of. Normally I'd tie it. This is a 14. Normally I'd tie it on a 16. It's really good for iron blue pattern. So
And what thread are you using?
this is a flat UTC.
Yeah.
So I can. It's a flat thread, you know,
Yeah.
so I can really unspin it and flatten it out. And I don't know if you guys do much split thread dubbing loops, but it's a really good thread for split.
Yeah.
I can't say it. But I'll show you that I've got a really cool, easier way of doing it. A tool I found that makes it really easy. So I'll show you that in a bit later. So now I'm going to wind me. And when I go to the BFFI, every year I go to the BFFI, I will specifically go to Steve Cooper's stand, and I'm looking for peacock eyes, which have got really good quills.
So it's you who takes them.
Yeah. And I'll go and have a look, and you can feel you're feeding for the nice fat stems, and you can see if they're going to be nice marked quills or not. So we're getting wind this. I'll get on and I'll be able to show the. So this is when I get one turn short of where I want to be, and it will slip out the hackle pliers. And but you're looking for nice even turns, so you get a really nice segmented body. You can put a bit of varnish underneath this if you wanted to add a bit of belt and braces to it. So here we go. So now I'm going to tie this as a thorax done, so that the hackle is going to be sort of all in the thoracic region. And this is a really good technique. It makes for really neat heads. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tie the hackle in first now. I'm going to shorten that a bit. This is a dark done saddle hackle. So I'm just going to expose the stem a bit at the front. And I want to tie the hackle in with the hackle protruding out over the eye, with the good shiny side against the shank. So this can be quite fiddly, because this obviously tying it that way round is easy because you can hold it in your hand and turn, but this way round it's a bit cack-handed, but excuse the state of my hands. So the key thing here, and tying in, you'll see where I tie in hackles this evening, is when I tie the hackle in, I'm not tying it in at the point where the fibres are going to start. I want to leave it so that there is a bit of bare stem. So basically the first sort of half or quarter turn when you start winding the hackle is just on bare stem. You'll know if you've trapped fibres, because when you go to bend the hackle, you know, you get weird bits poking out where they shouldn't be. So don't tie it in right at the point where the fibres are protruding. Give yourself a little bit of room. So we'll trim that off. And I don't like winding these hackles on a bare thread. So, and obviously with this, you know, you're imitating an insect with, you know, the thorax is the most bulbous part. So I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of dubbing. So here's a bit of mold. See, I've had my money's worth out of him. So I've literally just taken off the tiniest little bit of dubbing, just a wisp of dubbing. So I'll just tease it out a little bit, offer it up to the thread, and then just a firm finger and thumb in one direction.
Is that what's that? A bit of moleskin, is that or something?
Yeah, it's just mole, yeah, sorry. So just a tiny little, I've got way too much on there. Same old story. So just a tiny little bit of dubbing on the thorax, and I'm going to leave my thread parked at the back of the thorax there. So now what we're going to do, instead of what you would normally do is wind your hackle up to the eye and then tie off, we're going to wind the hackle back to the back of the thorax and then use the thread to tie all the way through. So then we've got nothing to cut off at the eye, so that it makes for a really neat head. This is a technique I got from Steve Skuse. He calls it backling, but I don't know what it's called, but I think it's an old technique, it's not a new technique. But it just creates such a neat head because you're not messing around at the end. So the only problem with tying in hackles first is if you've got to get the orientation right, because if not, then you basically you've got to undo everything and start again. So, but this one's gone all right. So I'll get turning at the eye, and I'm going to wind the hackle back through the thorax. So I get your sort of desired number of turns. So a turn, so that's the hackle tied in. And now, as you would with like running through a palmed fly with a rib, just wiggle go wind through confidently, just wiggling the thread. So this is like belt and braces, it's tied in all the way through. A couple of stray fibres there. And because you're not tying anything in or having to cut anything out, no bulky stalks at the eye, just, you can make such a neat little head on there. So a couple of turns. Try not to trap any fibres, because obviously flies with fibres poking out of the head don't catch fish. But I do a lot of photography. I like doing a lot of fly photography, and you really notice the mistakes. If you really want to get down to the little tiny things, the mistakes you make, start photographing your flies, and then you really see, things that you'd otherwise miss. It doesn't matter if you're just going to go out and fish, it doesn't matter. But so we just use the very scissor tips just to get in there and just nip that stem out. So it's a little bit straggly. What I've done, I have got all the flies for this evening already tied in my pot again. So if there's any I'm not happy with, I'll be getting that one out. Yeah. So I think this would make quite a good little midge imitation as well.
Yeah.